The story of Louis Braille. There was a time, not long ago, when many people believed blind people could never learn to read. People thought the only way to read was to look at words with your eyes. A young French boy named Louis Braille thought otherwise. Blind from the age of 3, young Louis desperately wanted to read. He realized the vast world of thought and ideas that was locked out to him because of his disability, and he was determined to find the key to this door for himself and for all other blind persons. This story begins in the early part of the 19th century. Louis Braille was born in 1809, in a small village near Paris. His father made harnesses and other leather goods to sell to the other villagers. Louis' father often used sharp tools to cut and punch holes in the leather. One tool he used to make holes was a sharp awl. An awl is a tool that looks like a short pointed stick, with a round, wooden handle. While playing with one of his father's awls, Louis' hand slipped and he accidentally poked one of his eyes. At first the injury didn't seem serious, but then the wound became infected. A few days later, young Louis lost sight in both his eyes. The first few days after becoming blind were very hard. But as the days went by, Louis learned to adapt and to lead an otherwise normal life. He went to school with all his friends and did well at his studies. He was both intelligent and creative. He refused to let his disability slow him down one bit. As he grew older, he realized the small school he attended lacked the money and resources he needed. He heard of a school in Paris that was especially for blind students. Louis didn't think twice about going. He packed his bags and went off to find himself a solid education. When he arrived at the special school for the blind, Louis asked his teacher if the school had any books blind persons could read. Indeed, they did. These books had large, raised letters which made the books large, bulky, and above all, expensive. The school had exactly 14 of them. Louis set about reading all 14 books in the school library. He could feel each letter, but it took a long time to read a sentence. It took a few seconds to read each word, and by the time he reached the end of a sentence, he almost forgot what the beginning of the sentence was about. Louis knew there must be a better way. There must be a way for a blind person to feel the words on a page quickly to enable the blind to read as quickly and easily as sighted people. That day he decided to devise a system for blind people to read. He would try to think of some alphabet code to make finger reading as quick and easy as sighted reading. Now Louis was a tremendously creative person. He had learned to play the cello and organ at a young age. He was so talented an organist that he played at churches all over Paris. Music was his first love. It was also a steady source of income. Louis had great confidence in his own creative abilities. He knew that he was as intelligent and creative as any other person his own age, and his musical talent showed how much he could accomplish when given a chance. One day Chance walked in the door. Someone at the school heard about an alphabet code being used by the French army. Officers use this code at night to send messages to soldiers. If a soldier had to strike a match to read a written message, it gave the enemy a target at which to shoot. Therefore these messages were delivered in an alphabet code made up of small raised dots and dashes, which soldiers could read in the dark by running their fingers over them. Once the soldiers understood the code, everything worked fine. Louis got hold of some of this code and tried it. It was much better than reading the gigantic books with their huge raised letters. But the Army code was still slow and cumbersome. The dashes took up too much space on a page. Each page could only hold 1 or 2 sentences. Louis believed he could improve this alphabet in some way. On his next vacation home, he would spend all his time working on finding a way to make this improvement. After being welcomed home by his parents, who always encouraged him on his music and other school projects, Louis sat to think about how he might improve the system of dots and dashes. He liked the idea of the raised dots, but could do without the raised dashes. As he sat there in his father's leather shop, he picked up one of his father's blundalls. The idea came to him in a flash. The very tool that had caused him to go blind could be used to make a raised dot alphabet that would enable him to read. The next few days he spent working on an alphabet made up entirely of 6 dots. The position of the different dots would represent the different letters of the alphabet. Louis used the blundall to punch out a sentence. He read it quickly from left to right. Everything made sense. It worked. Phil Shapiro. pshapiro at his.com. http://www.twitter.com/Phil Shapiro. Public domain, freely distributable for any purpose. I support opensource.com and encourage you to visit, learn from and contribute to that community of people building a more inclusive and hopeful future. If you'd like to support my creative work, kindly do these 2 steps. 1. Follow me on Twitter. 2. Send me a small donation via PayPal to pshapiro at his.com. If you make any open content educational materials, do please send me an email telling me about them.